Welcome to Roll to Hit Gaming Monthly. Today we'll look back at May 2018 and talk about some of the things that came off the shelf onto the table and whether they made a splash or just went thud.
We're also, for our discussion topic, going to take a look at the trends of board gaming. What's gone out of style, what's currently in style, and what's to come.
And of course we have our channel update, so let's dive right in. For Roll to Hit Gaming, I'm Chip.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Lucas. Last month, we got an opportunity to take a look at an upcoming Kickstarter expansion for one of our favorite games, so go check out the video where we review Coldwater Crown The Sea. Spoilers, this one adds just the right amount to complement the base game.
Yeah. This was a really fun expansion. I'm glad we had an opportunity to go through it. So Coldwater Crown, the game essentially is the fishing board game. And I know that sounds just tremendously interesting to everybody out there, but it really is a really fun game, and it gives you the feel of fishing. You've got locations around the board that you're going to go try to catch different species of fish. It's essentially, is it action selection or worker placement? I
kind of see it as worker manipulation.
Yeah, sort of an abstract worker. You have these little discs with the action numbers on them. But it is really, really fun, and a lot of different choices to make, a lot of ways to get victory points. In the end, it's a Euro game, so it's all about victory points. But just a neat package, and really surprising, especially for people who wouldn't maybe choose a fishing game. Yeah, highly recommended. We also put out a first look of the new game Empire, the re-release, second edition of Empires of the Void. And this game is a sci-fi game of exploration. I don't want to call it a 4X because you really can't exterminate your opponents. It leans more to, in my opinion, it leans more toward the Euro game sci-fi than the American style of 4X. But yeah, I think it's really fun. You are essentially driven away from Earth by this invading army, and now you have to colonize a new area of space. You have very limited time to do that and make alliances before this enemy comes to face you once more, and you want to be more prepared when they get there. So there's kind of two sides to the game. You can invade by force on these planets and take control of them and gain victory points and resources that way, or you can manipulate your influences around the board and score the ability to recruit special tiles by that raise, and also gain victory points by having the influence. I've never played the first edition, and so I can't speak to what the changes are between editions, but I can say I really did enjoy the second edition, and I hope you enjoy the first look.
I like the tech tree, especially the way you can use your resources to build that tech tree up and have more, colonies and factories and stuff. So that was really cool.
Really neat package.
Yeah, I still haven't had a chance to play that one yet, but the reason I backed it on Kickstarter was I'm a huge fan of Ryan Lockett's games, and I'm a big fan of his art, because he's kind of a one-stop shop over there doing everything for his game, and the visual appeal of this one, I just could not back it.
Yeah,
it's so pretty. So if for nothing else, give it a check for that.
Yeah, and I am a huge fan of Ryan Lockett. This one definitely scores at the top. I know City of Iron is my favorite right now, but I think with a few more plays of this, it's a heavy contender.
Also on the channel, we did a look at components, how to upgrade your board game, specifically Grand Austria Hotel. So take a look at that. You might be surprised.
Since last we met or talked, we've had a chance to play actually quite a few games. We had gotten in a lull.
For us lately, yeah.
Our last episode, we hadn't played too many titles, but we remedied that in between. My favorite this month is going to be a new game we picked up, The Flow of History. And
ding, ding, ding.
Oh, hey, we got a crossover there. Yeah, so, and I think we're so befitting to speak of this because you hate Through the Ages.
I do.
Because of length and fiddliness and all that.
I am a card-carrying hater of that game.
And I like it because it's civilization building, and that's probably, if not my favorite genre, it's one of my favorite genres.
Well, the trouble is, you could go out, find an island, and build that civilization for real quicker than you play the
game. Probably. But Flow of History it's a faster play, but still gives me the same feeling as Through the Ages. And so fiddliness is taken down. It's simplified, but that's okay. I still had a really great time playing this. I had the feel of playing Through the Ages. We played with, did we play with 4 players?
I think we did 5 on that one.
5, yeah. And I thought the flow was great, no pun intended, but just the way everything come out and the way things work, very similar to Through the Ages, but not as, it didn't take as long. I think our first game was 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So
yeah, about an hour.
So I really enjoyed it. If you get a chance, and small package, very portable game. Really check it out. The Flow of History.
Yeah, I like the way that rather than have a number of different resources to make your civilization work, you had one resource / currency.
Yeah.
And then you were trying to build your synergies between the different technologies or buildings that you would put into your little empire. And even some of them accidentally, right? I mean, I started off, very peacefully building up culture, and then I mixed that with something that made my military tie into it and just go crazy, even though that was never my intention. It just kind of came about that way. But each one of those cards fits into one of, I believe, 5 different colors, which is a type of technology you're building. And the interesting choice is, in later epochs, a different one will come up, and you may say, "Oh, hey, I really like that green one." But if you take it, it covers the special ability of your previous green one, and you're building up there, and you'll still keep their resource icons on the bottom. So you have to decide, is that new ability worth losing the old one? And it's the evolution of your civilization. Really, really cool. And like you said, it's Through the Ages in 45 minutes to an hour, and it's exactly what I was looking for with that one.
Oddly enough, I've been searching for a good civilization game. Y'all would bring one to the table, and we give it a whirl, and it didn't give me what I wanted. Same way with Through the Ages and all that. But when this one came out, I was skeptical. But when I actually played it and saw that synergy going, I really did enjoy it. So it's one of the first civilization games that I would be like, yep, let's do it again and again and again.
Yeah, really good.
Well, for my off-the-shelf highlights, I actually have 2 games I want to talk about because both of them deserve to step out into the light. The first one is Dead Man's Doubloons. This is a Thundergriff game. It's pirates. It's like they're racing, but the captains are racing on the island to get to the buried treasure while their ships are circling that island and fighting each other. And this is definitely a, one versus, I'm against everybody. You're going to be mean to each other, so know that going in. But it's just a ton of fun. You're programming your movement before you even start. So, you've trapped yourself into, I'm doing these 3 actions this round. Though you get a choice of which of the 2 are you going to use once you flip that card. And it's a ton of fun. And even if you die, you can still wreak havoc. So, I just ended up loving that game, and that's Dead Man's Doubloons.
I did a little bit better this time than I did my first try because I was actually shooting y'all. But I couldn't, you need to actually sink the ship to gain reputation, because reputation will give you victory points in the end. And I couldn't make that final kill shot, But I did a lot better on the island. I got a lot more resources and gems and things. And so I didn't finish dead last, but I haven't won yet. But it is really fun.
That's an interesting choice you make, because, I'd have to go back and look, but just as you were talking about it, I think we talked about this one last month. So it might have been, you may have chosen that one, 2 months in a row. When we did the Shelf of Shame thing last year, it was always what new game was the hot thing. And this year we made a concerted effort to say, what was our favorite game we played that month? And it looks like yours endured from month to month.
It did, because the second time around it was with the full five, five of us playing. So I got to see it even on a bigger, epic scale, and it delivered again.
We need to play the flip side of the map now.
We do.
The map is double-sided, so you have a different experience on the other side.
Island. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now the second one I wanted to mention is Modern Art. It's a Reiner Knizia game. This one is you basically have an art gallery, and there's one. Each player has their own art gallery. Paris and Sao Paulo and New York, and you are bidding for paintings, and you're trying to buy and sell and create the trend for that particular artist, so that you can get the most money from the auctions. And the whole point is about money. Of course, it's Reiner, but you're creating those trends for those big dollars, and the most money wins. It was an auction bidding game, and it's hard to find one that's just pure auction bidding. That's the whole thing, was what that was, and it was a lot of fun. You need more. I think it's 3 to 6 players, or 3 to 5, 3 to 6. But you need the full complement because of the auctions. Yeah. But I thought it deserved a spotlight because I had a ton of fun playing that one too, and that's Modern Art.
I lost my mind and picked that one up. It's auction after auction after auction after auction, and I'm not a big auction fan. So once I got it, I kind of figured that it would go over not well, just based on what the game was. But we kind of got into it and role played it a little bit, like what was that game? Sheriff of Nottingham, a little bit. So I think that added quite a bit to it. There is a math puzzle in there, but it's really about what am I wagering against, what am I gaining, and you're trying to build up how many of a given artist's paintings sell in a turn, because that will rank them. And as the game goes along, that if you can keep a guy popular for the whole thing and you've got a bunch of his paintings, you're going to do really well. It went over far better than I thought it would. So yeah,
I was going to talk about that. The way that we approached that game was much like we approached Sheriff of Nottingham, and I've talked about that before. To me, I don't think either one of these games would be quite as entertaining if you didn't have a group that was able to kind of cut loose and be really lighthearted with it. And that's how we approach it. Now, Knizia he's a math genius, and
doctor,
and his games certainly have equations built into them. If you wanted to play that way, you could, and I guess you'd be successful, but I wouldn't want to play in that game.
Right?
Yeah. But this is really fun, especially if you can get into
a bidding war.
Yeah, get into the spirit of being an art gallerist, and essentially, like you said, it's an auction game, but it's not just your typical. Okay, can I get 5? I got 5. Can I get 10? There's
5 different kinds of auctions.
4 or 5 different kinds of auctions. So that adds a little bit of variety. That's neat. And there is some strategy in that, and there's opportunity to to be silly and do things like that. But then, like you said, as the artist gets popular, they'll get more valuable over time, and so now you want to kind of keep getting those artists. I had a great time playing it. I mean, it's it is what it is, and I'm glad the group gave it the fun atmosphere that it needed.
Well, and we used it as at the end of the night, right?
Yeah,
so I think it was
like a closer.
A good cap off there, which kind of brings me to something I wanted to talk about before we went on from here. If you're gaming, maybe this will be some advice if you have a gaming group like ours that shows up and says, what do you want to play? And you look at the wall forever. Last weekend, Chip sent me a text message that said, what are we filming today? And I said, nothing. What are we playing today? Yeah. And we just picked 5 or 6 games and lined them up on the edge of the table, and we just mowed through them. And, we got around that whole, what are you playing? We just did one game after another. We picked a pretty good set. We ended with Modern Art, which worked out really well. Along the way, we played what I'm going to put in the disappointing category this month, and that's Rise to Nobility. Again, this is another one of these things I backed because it was visually very appealing, and it's a worker placement game where you're building up your little clan and trying to rise up the ranks of nobility and control the land or whatever. It's got too much going on. you send your worker over here to get furniture, but if you've got workers there, you can get a bonus, or you have to have workers there to leave an apprentice behind. And there are so many things you have to keep up while you're playing this one. I thought it took what at its core was a really good worker placement game and bogged it down just a little too much. What did you think?
I agree with most of that. I'm willing to play it one more time just to give it the benefit of the doubt, but to me, it had a real strong feeling of Stone Age, and I like Stone Age.
Yeah.
I really like Stone Age.
But Stone Age is the other side of that coin. It's more simple.
And that's what I was going to say. I think Stone Age rises to the level of complexity that's perfect for me. Mm-hmm. Rise to Nobility took it a couple of steps farther, and like you said, added just a lot of little nitpicks in that you had to keep up and keep juggling in your mind. And I guess one of my things when I'm playing, it's not that I don't trust y'all, because y'all are like really trustworthy when we're playing, non-bluffing games or whatever. But, I've never had a problem with any of our players cheating or anything like that. I'm not trying to make an accusation, but like I look at a game and I go, wow, this is really complex. I gotta keep in mind this and this and this and this, and I gotta do this. But because I'm set up this way, I have to remember that I can only do it this way. And then my brain starts thinking, not that you guys are going to cheat, but that you guys are going to forget stuff too, right? And so now, not only do I got to try to juggle all my stuff, but I got to look at you and go, okay, well, they have that, so they can only do that, and then they have to do this over here, And I'm like watching you, and I'm like I know I don't like downtime in games, but I also don't like this constant So Rise to Nobility kind of had that, right? I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, where are people's apprentices? Where are their guild masters? What buildings do they have? What, and all this, and trying to keep up with that. And I was exhausted after we played it, man. But, I am willing to give it another shot. Maybe it was because we were at 5 players. Maybe we need to back that down to 3, make that a little better. But, like you said, there's added complexity in this game that I think I could probably do without.
Yeah. And then before we move out of this segment, one last thing. Our friends over at Bellwether Games are going to put Coldwater Crown the Sea on Kickstarter June 20th. We talked about it a little earlier. We have our full video review up on it. But if you're a fan of the game, this one gives you the opportunity to board your vessel and go out to sea and catch big, crazy, other kinds of fish. But while you're out there, you can't fish on your shore, lake, and river locations. So it was the perfect addition to an already great game. Go check that out. June 20th on Kickstarter from Bellwether Games, Coldwater Crown, the Sea.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So for our discussion topic, we're going to look at the trends in board gaming. First, I wanted to look at what are some trends that have come and gone, things that we notice have kind of went by the wayside.
Are we hoping they're gone? Or?
No, these are ones that we have seen move along.
I'm going to put a little in both categories in my first answer here. Mm-hmm. It feels like they have lightened up on the zombies.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Thank goodness, because for a while, every game that came out had zombies in it, and I am not a zombie fan, and it just drove me crazy. Mm-hmm. So it feels like that is dwindling at the very least, and I'm very thankful for that.
Well, and I listed that, and I also listed Vikings seems to be coming down from, I think it was year before last, it was like the year of the Viking.
It may kick back off, though.
Yeah, but
that new Ragnarok
that's
thing,
what I was about to say. Mythic Battles
it
Ragnarok.
Might get another surge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to. And, not that we don't have enough Mythic Battles Pantheon.
Amen.
Now we're going to have another big Kickstarter Ragnarok to back, so we can combine all that. I figured they would go that direction just because the Pantheon of Gods in Vikings and Vikings have been popular. Mm-hmm. But if you're listening, who does that game? Monolith? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if you're listening, let's do an Ancient Egypt, a Gods of Egypt version of Mythic Battles. That would be really cool.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. So, but to me, 2017 seemed like the year of the escape room game.
Oh, those were big, and I haven't played one yet.
I don't either. And the kids got me one, I think, last year, and we still haven't played it. But yeah, they're all kinds of different varieties of escape room games.
Well, before we get into more current trends right now, the one that I want to see, tell me if I'm crazy, but do you see a decline in Cthulhu games? Because I really haven't seen that many crop up.
I think
anymore.
not on the scale that we had a couple years ago, but they're still pretty steadily coming out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that may just be enduring now, and I'm not sure if Kickstarter didn't start this, but there are miniatures in everything now. Even games that don't need them.
Yeah.
And that's become a trend, right? I mean, it's they used to joke, put Cthulhu, zombies, or miniatures in your game, and it was going to fund. They're just even. I just backed a few days ago the new Academy Games Tudor title. And there are figures in that, and it's a kind of a worker placement Euro-y thing, right?
That was like a huge section of my notes. I call them massive miniature games, right?
Yeah.
So we've had the Zombicide series.
Right.
Every version of it comes out has millions of miniatures. Massive Darkness, Rising Sun,
which is Zombicide Black Plague version 2.
Version 2, basically.
From what I've heard.
Rising Sun, which had even more models than its predecessor, Blood Rage. Rise of Moloch has a ton of miniatures. Of course, Kingdom Death Monster and this Dark Souls game, they're kind of the darker version, but still chocked full of miniatures. This Skull Tales game that's coming out about pirates, it's on Kickstarter. And then Arcadia Quest and all its iterations. And I mean, the list goes on and on. Yeah, it's just, it's nuts. I'm getting this. Like, I love miniatures, and I'm a miniature painter, but and so
you start to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, those type of games appeal to me, but I'm feeling overwhelmed because I'm like, I'm not even halfway through painting the base set of Rising Sun. I've got all this Massive Darkness and all this Zombicide stuff, the Black Plague stuff, just piled up, and I'm like, it's never going to end.
It almost makes you not want to buy the next miniature game.
Almost,
because
right?
I don't have time to paint.
I'm getting fatigued because I can't buy a miniature game and not paint it. That's nonsense.
I feel like that way. I've started to look at those games now, and my brain goes, it's just a mini grab, and some maybe good games I'm starting to overlook because they all have a ton of miniatures in them now.
And I think that's kind of a problem too. You look at some of the ones that are coming out, I think that, some of them are lacking in game and trying to make up for it with massive miniatures.
Yeah, because I know not everybody likes it, but I'm a big fan of it. Because you made a bunch of fantasy or miniatures did not mean you recreated Descent. So.
Well, another current trend that I've seen is legacy or choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the pandemics, you're looking at Gloomhaven, you're looking at Seventh Continent. You're having an insurgence of games that are that style, and those that are trying to get a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing more legacy style or legacy-ish. If you had asked me when we played Pandemic Legacy Season 1, is this the next big thing? I would have said absolutely. But since then, there's been just a trickle of pure legacy games come out. And frankly, a lot of them bad. But these legacy-ish games may be where the happy medium is. Like Gloomhaven and Seventh Continent, those sorts of things.
Yeah. Right.
I kind of think that we have witnessed the birth of the newest mechanic. I think that legacy is not necessarily a trend in gaming. I think that it is a fledgling mechanic. And, Pandemic Legacy was very much on one side of the spectrum of you're going to tear cards up, your game's never going to be the same. And that's fine. I had a great time playing. That's definitely not a critique of the game. But it's just to highlight, you're physically manipulating this game. Whereas games like The Seventh Continent have continuation of game, but you're not destroying anything in the process.
In Charterstone, you're building your board.
Yeah, and you're building your board.
I'm a little underwhelmed. I haven't finished Charterstone, so I'm not passing judgment. I'm a little underwhelmed with it where we're at right now, but that is brilliant. I love the idea that I'm building my game board.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I've got a completely customized game that we've created along the way. And that's they kind of put over Pandemic Legacy that it worked that way. It really doesn't. You just play that last scenario over and over again if you're going to do that. This one making a fresh board, I love that idea. And maybe by the time we finish playing it, I'll be like, oh, cool.
Yeah. And that one is highlights another part is they've introduced the reset mechanic.
Yeah.
So once you're done,
that's nice.
I mean, like you guys are playing 2-player.
Mhm.
Once you're done, if you feel like it, you can go out and for $25, $30, you can buy a recharge kit, flip the board over because it's double-sided and the other side's, a reset. And now say, okay, well, maybe if we were underwhelmed at 2, let's try playing it at 3 or 4 and see if it changes anything.
Right.
And just because of there's a little bit of randomness into it, so some of the stuff will come out in different order and things like that. But yeah, I think Legacy, to me, it's more of a mechanic now. It's sort of evolved into that.
Is there anything else that y'all can think of? I have one more for a current trend.
I think we are smack dab in the middle of, and I have been drawn into it, the roll and write craze.
That's what I had.
Yeah, roll and write.
We've seen a bunch of those come out. You picked up one for me yesterday. I've been playing the heck out of Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. We've got a couple others that we've played this year. It just seems like those are coming hot and heavy, and I'm really enjoying them. So
yeah, I welcome it. I guess the first one I ever played
wouldn't be Yahtzee, right?
Well, the first modern one I played was this Roll Through the Ages.
Okay,
And then I kind of liked the concept of it. And then you guys lent me the La Granja.
Yep. No Siesta.
No Siesta. Yeah. And that was cool. And then I picked up the Garden Dice and Harvest Dice. And that. So, yeah, they're really cool. I do want to play. I liked Castles of Burgundy. I don't know that you did so well.
I love it at 2 players.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I want to play the dice game too.
It's actually fun. I did that one. So
it's
really cool.
Yeah, I think it's the deepest roll and ride I've played.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because just like in Castles of Burgundy, you have that tile, and there's you're trying to fill out your space. There's so many different things you can do. And we're all choosing from the same set, right? At the beginning of the turn, one player rolls the set of dice, and we're all picking from the same thing, but how you spread out your board and make your different choices. There's a lot to that.
It's like they're recognizing that it doesn't have to be a huge board game to get people interested in it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. They can do the roll and write, the portable games, and it's just as popular. So.
Well, and I wonder if we're seeing more of these gaming cafes and things like that, so these smaller, more portable games really fit that kind of lifestyle, right?
Well, Castles, from a solo perspective, that's your play area. Yeah. It's no bigger than a piece of paper, so that's really handy.
Yep.
Okay, so going forward, what do you hope for, or do you see, coming down the pipe as far as a trend?
I see crime and detective games.
That does seem to be popping up.
Come pop up. I did a cursory search. I found coming down the pipe, we've got Chronicles of Crime, Brook City, which is like a play on all of the buddy cop movies all smashed together.
All right.
And then we've got Detective City of Angels, Pulp Detective, which I would have backed Pulp Detective on Kickstarter, but it was a European one, and the shipping was just kind of, I don't know, just kind of crazy. So I was hoping, since we live in the area that has one of, if not the biggest gaming stores in the country, I was hoping Madness was going to get a couple of copies of it just offhand, and then I'll pick it up. And then, I guess you can put Mansions of Madness into that kind of genre of the investigation stuff, but it's got a life of its own with expansions and things like that coming down the pipe. But so I think crime and detective, I think we're gonna see a lot of those coming up.
I think I see fantasy making a big push, and I don't mean like the generic fantasy. Mm-hmm. I mean where they create a world, and they actually put a lot of effort into creating this world and creating these characters. Also, I see a lot of historical fantasy, like with Crusades and with, like you'd mentioned, Tudors, taking a point in history and building a game around it.
Well, they kind of did that with that Joan of Arc game, right?
Yeah.
They really mixed history and mythology in together. I think we've seen, and this is probably because of the mass of people into the hobby, I think we've seen the simplification of some historical war games, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing, right? You have the Command and Color stuff, which I'm not saying is simple, but it's a lot more simple than some of those old chit-based. Yeah. And if you like those, I'm not hating. They just make my brain melt. But we've seen that sort of thing. Academy Games has put out these amazing Euro, strategy games that are historically based. Mm-hmm. And I like, as a fan of history, I like to see that trend come a little closer to what I'm comfortable with there. So. Yeah. And then I was thinking about this. I'm going to irritate some people with this one, but stop trying to make CCGs, y'all. Just stop. I mean, there's a new one on Kickstarter every day, whatever collectible card game. Stop trying to make those. It's not going to happen. There are some that will be successful, and I guess Fantasy Flight keeps pumping out LCGs, which are in the ballpark, but I mean, there's too many card games. The market
is flooded.
Yeah, I mean, way too many card games. Mm-hmm. So,
well, you asked me what I want to see. I'll tell you this: when it comes to Cool Mini or not, Simon, my favorite of their games is not a miniature heavy game that they're known for. Because you think of Simon, you think Zombicide, and these every box has a ton of minis and everything. Dogs of War is a game they put out. And it's a real Euro style board game. There are minis, but frankly, they're
character pieces.
They're character, they're bust. They're almost not even needed to play the game. The core mechanic of the game is great, and you're not moving around a bunch of miniatures and trying to fight and stuff like that. Which I love. The other games is fine. Zombicide, Black Plague, I like that. I love Massive Darkness and all that, but I like Dogs of War, and I wouldn't mind seeing Simon do another game that focuses more on good mechanic than ton of miniatures.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, when Lang became their chief poobah over there, he gave an interview I watched where he said that, Simon, in his thinking, a Simon game should be one that you walk by and you go, oh, what is that visually, right? Mm-hmm. And he made this statement. Not necessarily just because of a ton of great miniatures, right? But, just something that's visually catching on the board. So I agree with you. I'd like to see them go that way. If you're giving me just wish list, whatever I want, I want them to put out 500 Indiana Jones and or Star Trek games in the coming year so that maybe one of them will be good.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see. But in all seriousness, some kind of, sci-fi adventure, not Star Wars. I love it, but give me something else. Type game that gives you the same kind of feeling like you have with one of these big exploration, Eldritch horror, whatever type games. Something with that space opera theme going along at the same time would be a trend I'd like to see us move into. We see a lot of sci-fi games, but I want something that is sci-fi and heavy story and adventure. And I'd like to see us go in that direction.
I would like to see a sci-fi game that was 3X, because I'm not a big extermination fan, right?
I'll kill you on your home planet.
I mean, if you have to, you have to. But I like the exploration and the discovery of sci-fi.
Yeah.
So I want that
with hazards.
And then I'll give you one chance. I'm not a huge fan of the app integrations. But how about we have a game where you're exploring your map as a group? It's going to be your game is going to be a co-op. Okay, so here we go. All right, designers, listen up. Chip's going to give you free advice.
From a guy who sold no games.
Yeah, so never designed one. No, I'm just riffing here. Let's have a co-op space exploration game on my table, app integrated, so that the threats that we discover as a group are actually other groups playing around the world on their tables and doing their exploration and all of their fiddly bits. So,
oh my,
yeah, how about that?
That makes my brain hurt.
A massive multiplayer board game of a sense.
Okay.
Well, since he went down that road of apps, and I've made it no secret, I'm not a big fan of them either, but we played Rising 5, which has a companion app that takes away somebody being bored and playing the Dungeon Master. We've also been playing an expansive dungeon crawler called Shadows of Brimstone. That's got 500 decks and 82 different kinds of tokens and all these things. I'd love to see a trend of companion apps that take some of that minutia out of games like Shadows of Brimstone, because I think that brings it down for me a little bit for a game that should be way up here for me. It's just, there's this chugging along and stop and start and what have you because of all of the different things you have to interact with. A companion app, hit the button, and it picks the right deck and draws the right card or whatever. Those would be
every
amazing
time you got to
additions.
stop the action to go find the right deck and deal and shuffle. It breaks that immersion in the game, right? So companion apps are definitely valuable.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, there's games that have been created that are like simple things. My examples would be Sagrada. You're building a stained glass window. Or Azul, and you're putting together a mosaic. I'd like to see that expanded and trend even further. Taking just a simple thing and just building a beautiful mechanic around it. So it's visually stunning, but it's a puzzle. And I'd like to see them take games like that and expand on that.
And those in particular, we've talked about this before, but I think you're seeing an evolution of abstract strategy games away from my white and black cubes or blocks or spheres or whatever to something that is visually interesting. Those two you just mentioned, very visually interesting. Santorini, very visually interesting, to make it, I think, more engaging to play with something like that.
They're putting a theme on abstract. Really. I mean, Sagrada does that great.
I would love to see that continue, because if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I'd have told you that I don't play abstract strategy games. And I think the Duke broke that rule for me, but it's still not exactly visually interesting. It's still that light wood, dark wood. Now they're starting to get pretty cool, and I'm more inclined to play them, when they look like that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us with our discussion topic. And if you have any trends that you see have come and gone, please make a note of it, and we'd be very interested in to see that.
If you are crazy enough to take Chip's advice, plug us in with royalties. Hit us at rolltohitgaming@gmail.com. That's going to wrap us up for another month. For Roll to Hit Gaming, I'm Lucas.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Chip. To the kids of E.D. Walker Middle School, hello. Don't forget to subscribe.